Monday over here at youtube.com/WrestlingUnderground. I'm your host, as always, Chad Porto, and joining me is Marcus Green. Let's get into it, Marcus. It's top 10 athletes who have crossed over into pro wrestling, either part-time and or full-time. I'm going to start us off with number one. I think you're going to love this one. Is the big bad Ron Simmons himself. Oh. While full-time pro wrestler for a very long time, people often forget that he was an All-American nose tackle at Florida State under Bobby Bowden. At least I think it was Bowden. And eventually went on to even play, or at least try out for a little bit in the NFL. He did not make it into football, but he did cross over to pro wrestling, and I want to say it was in 1992, 1993, he wins the WCW World Heavyweight Championship for the first and only time of his career. How the WWE fucked up Ron Simmons is beyond me, but number one is definitely the former All-Pro nose tackle, collegiate Hall of Famer, Ron Simmons. Marcus, next one up.
I'm keeping it black.
Lana?
Like, yeah. I'm going with a man who came out of NFL dating all the way back 2006. His stint ended in 2012, where he went from Atlanta Falcons and ended with the St. Louis Rams. Had a time he passed through Ring of Honor as a young but promising upstart, and came to Impact to 2016 alongside, I think it was Mike Bennett.
Mm-hmm.
Now he stands as the crown/uncrowned TNA World Heavyweight Champion. He is the legend known as Moose.
I dare to pronounce his real name.
That would be Quinn Ojinaka.
See, I don't know if you're wrong,
Yeah.
so I'm going to give it to you.
Like, I don't know if it's Ojinaka or like try to put some Japanese swagger on Ojinaka. Like, I don't know if
Chaka Noir. Moving on, I'm going with a man who's similar to the name Moose. Moose is a giant animal who will headbutt the shit out of your car if you let it. Kind of like a beast. And I'm going with the only beast in pro wrestling history that matters, and that's Dan the Beast Severin. He was a former super fight champion in the UFC. He had a bunch of title belts that didn't really mean anything because it was fucking 1995 UFC. Who the fuck cares? But he came over to WWE and wrestled, and they didn't know how to use him. They wanted him to tattoo 666 to his forehead and shave his head, and he's like, bro, I live in suburban Michigan. That's bad idea, juice, all over. Like, who's drinking this? Because it's a bad idea. He was supposed to be part of the first ever TNA show, but due to pricing issues and trying to get him to agree to drop the belt, they were unable to come to a deal, and they stripped him of the title, and instead Ken Shamrock won it in a battle royal. But Marcus, I still pine for the universe where Dan Severn and Ken Shamrock headlined the first ever TNA wrestling event. Oh, that would have been awesome. Still competes. Competed up until last year at like 62.
yeah.
He's literally a beast. Marcus, next one.
Yeah, next one for me, man. I'm going single-handedly probably one of the most notorious, really athletes out, but singly definitely one of the most notorious and successful boxers of all time. When you think of this guy, you think about the phrase "Mama say knock you out," and unfortunately, with his history, there was a time where he may have very well knocked you and your mama out. But since his more violent days, with his boxing career, he has since grown into a pigeon and a medicinal marijuana enthusiast. I'm talking about the man we should all fear until his dying day, and also a man who's stepping back in the ring, I think, this year.
Mm-hmm.
With across from Roy Jones Jr., I'm talking about Iron Mike Tyson. And, talking about his stint in wrestling, who could forget? I mean, he, was one of the reasons why, one of the most successful manias of all time. And talking about standing two badasses standing across from each other. Iron Mike Tyson versus freaking Stone Cold Steve Austin. You don't get much better than that. So
Where's Booker T when you need it? Roy Jones, Mike Tyson's coming for you. Next one up for me. I'm going to keep the athletic black dude coming over from Combat Sports, only we're going full-time, and I'm going with prime time. Not Elite Skipper, but Ernest Miller, the Cats. He's one of those guys that I feel like never really got his just desserts. He especially in WCW, was often treated as an afterthought, but he was a legitimate karate world champion. He had some of the best talking skills during his run, and if you had promoted him as a guy who knocked you out with his footwork legitimately, instead of having to use those goofy-ass red shoes and putting him with Sonny Ono, I think Ernest Miller would have been huge. But, you know, hindsight's never involved with me because I would never have needed hindsight to have pointed that one out. But you know, love me some Ernest Miller. Love me some Ernest Miller. Marcus, next one up.
For me, you know, I'm going with another guy who transitioned from the NFL. Also, you know, going all the way back to the 90s. Was on the Rams, Falcons, the Panthers, and whatnot. And yeah, he's most known for being, you know, his time with the Georgia football team, and he transitioned into wrestling, and notoriously is probably the man with probably the most vicious spear of all time.
Poor Nunzio.
Oh yeah, we still praying for Nunzio. Let's talk about the man who ran roughshod in WCW. Had a meteoric stint in WWE, and then came back in recent memory and has done some good stuff as well. I'm talking about Bill Goldberg.
The man. Love Goldberg. Love him so much. My next one up is going to go to a former UFC World Champion and another mixed martial artist transitioning, another combat sports star transitioning to the wrestling world, and that's Josh Barnett. You can't seem to ever stay out of the PED bubble when it comes to actually competing for mixed martial arts, but luckily for wrestling, that doesn't matter. He popped up in New Japan probably, what was it, 02, I think, or 04, and he nearly won the IWGP Heavyweight Championship in his rookie match, his debut match, against Yuji Nagata. He eventually came over to Impact Wrestling for a brief spell, I want to say in 2017, when Lashley was at the top of the card. And they had a little segment, but it never really went on past a few weeks. Currently, Barnett is still looking at competing for Bellator, and he is wrestling on the indies with his secondary subsidiary promotion to GCW, which is called Bloodsport. He runs shows a couple times a year called Josh Barnett's Bloodsport, and he had, you know, he said a few, probably 3 to 5 that were set for this year, but all had to be canceled due to the recent pandemic. Barnett's awesome, and he's a big metalhead, so gotta love Barnett. Marcus, next one.
Yeah, I'm going with somebody who was just born to be in sports, whether it be in regular, straight up and down team sports, professionally or combat. This is a guy who had a great stint in college with, you know, wrestling, national NCAA champion, 2-time NCAA All-American. You name it, this guy's done it, and he's truly a freak of nature, transitioned into wrestling, and really is one of the few guys to pick it up and truly become a phenomenon, and still is to this day. He is the beast incarnate known as Brock Lesnar. I mean, really, his name speaks for itself. Just go to YouTube, and you won't get off until next week.
So, you know that song Brian Boitano in the South Park movie?
Oh, yeah.
We need to do a song about Brock Lesnar in the same key. What would Brock Lesnar do if he was here right now? He'd probably snap a neck or two. That's what Brock Lesnar would do.
Orton has RKOs out of nowhere. Brock has murders out of nowhere.
My last one should be no obvious if you follow the theme of my list. In the prime of his career, there was legitimately no better mixed martial artist, submission specialist, and fighter in the world than Ken Shamrock. If you put prime Mike Tyson in a MMA fight against a prime Ken Shamrock, Tyson loses a limb within 20 seconds. That's how good Ken Shamrock was at submission grappling. But if you catch him with a fist, he's probably going to be looking at his teeth going into the front row. He wasn't much of a knockout artist. But his submission skills made him something of a phenomenon, especially in the early days of the UFC. But ironically enough, he was actually starting to decline when the UFC started. That's how long and fierce of a career he had prior to it in leagues like Pancrase. So when he transitioned to pro wrestling, he obviously became a bigger star because you're able to market him better. But of course, WB doesn't know how to market anyone better because they had this prime time, world's most dangerous man, too tough Ken Shamrock, and they're like, oh, we'll just have him lose or win by DQ all the time. That makes fucking sense. God damn it, I hate that company so goddamn much. He eventually won his only world title so far with TNA in its inaugural show back in 2002, but I'm still hoping 18 years later at the age of 56, 57, that Shamrock is able to pull off one more world title win because that would just be George Foreman-esque.
Yeah.
Last one, Marcus. Who do you got?
Yeah, last one. This is a true golden star here. I'm not talking about Kota Ibushi. I'm talking about somebody who seems like they was born to be in wrestling. Period. I mean, his amateur and collegiate highlights speak for themselves. He is an inductee into the International Sports Hall of Fame, and you check his background. This guy is 100% the definition of certified, but more importantly, he is one of, if not the only guy to reach the heights of wrestling entertainment that we've seen to win a gold medal with a broken freaking neck. Transition into the entertaining performing arts version of wrestling, and I mean, he's really one of the greatest performers of all time for me. I got to see him from, when he first started and to his retirement. I'm talking about Kurt Angle.
The best.
Next to Brock, nobody picked up professional wrestling quicker, and nobody excelled at it better. So.
Love Kurt Angle. Hell of a way to end this list. We're done. We're out of here. RealNerdCorp.com. Be sure to tune in for the website every day because we usually have new content going up podcast-wise or even articles because I still got to get done that fucking mid-year that was supposed to be done a month ago. Oh, well. I'll get to it when I get to it. You can find us on Twitter at NerdCorp, on Instagram at Chad's Photo Hut. Nope, that's my personal one. At Real NerdCorp on Instagram. We'll be back to posting stuff on Instagram now because I got a new phone that can actually do that. So, yeah. You can also find us on our personals. Marcus, you can be found on yours at ParadoxKid, ParadoxKid.
That's me.
You can also find them on other podcasts, The True Penny Show, over on Twitter at True Penny Show, TruePennyShow. You can find me on Twitter at Chad NerdCorp, ChadNerdCorp, and on Instagram at Chad's Photo Hut. We're done. We'll see you Wednesday. Top 10 celebs coming at you. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment down below if you want. I don't care. We're going to be doing this whether or not you do it. So with all that being said, Marcus, take us home.
Good night, meat.
Take us home, country road.